All right, there we go. Sorry everyone for the technical difficulties there, but we are here with the man, Stat Boy Steven. Glad to have you on. Happy to have you on. And he certainly knows way more about these draft picks than I do. So had to bring him on. And what a day for the Rangers. What a day. They started off in the second round drafting Adam Sakura, which I know that you were very high on. So I want you to start off and go in depth with the Sakura pick because I was seeing comparisons like Sorelli, I was seeing Lehkonen, guys like that thrown around.
Yeah, look, it's been a good 2 days for me. Who yeah, I always enjoy the draft more than most people. I think it's definitely a time of the year that I look forward to as a hockey fan. Um, and the Rangers not having a first round pick, of course, hurts them a little bit. But losing that first round pick to make the conference final was a good trade off. I'm still happy with that. Um, yeah, the first pick, Adam Sakura, 63rd overall. Going into today, I listed about 6, 7 players that I'd be happy with at 63, and Adam Sakura was one of them. So yeah, I couldn't be happier. Kid from Slovakia, played for Nitra this past season, um, and yeah, this kid is just yeah, he's a really good skater, very fast. Plays with a little bit of an edge. Is actually a pest on the ice. You know, Ranger fans are gonna love this guy because he doesn't shy away from doing the dirty stuff. Um, but yeah, to get a kid like this late in the second round, which is what's almost technically a third round pick, 63rd overall. A couple of years ago, there would have been a third round pick. But yeah, I'm super happy with this kid, man. It, like I said, he was one of like 6, 7 guys that I tweeted out earlier today before the draft started today. Um, he's probably going to be two years away from making the NHL, so we have to be patient, as we usually are with second and third round picks and beyond. But yeah, I really like this pick. Um, I know the Ranger fans wanted to get a center, but
As
20,
always.
2020 we drafted Braden Schneider instead of a center, and look how that turned out. 2021 we drafted Brennan Othman, a winger, instead of a center, and look at the season he's had. So let's just trust the process. Let's trust what Drury and the scouts are doing. This kid is the real deal, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned that because people are freaking out about not being a center. I was someone that freaked out when they drafted Brain Schneider over a center in that draft, and then Othman goes the next year. Everyone's freaking out, and now he's proven everyone wrong. So I'm happy with it. And then they ended up either way drafting a center with their next pick, which it's looking like he was in from all the mocks that it says on Elite Prospects. At least it looks like he was mocked to go in that same range as Adam Sakura. So to get him when they did as well, I think that the Rangers did a good job. You add a center, you add a winger, and the Adam Sakura is the youngest player in the draft, I'm pretty sure. So
Yeah.
he still has room to grow both height and with his game. So I'm looking forward to it. And his defensive game, at least from the scouting reports that I
No.
read, seems to be
If
really
if
good.
if Adam Sakura was born 9 days later, he'd be eligible for next year's draft. That's how young he is.
Well, there you go then. So he has plenty of room to grow there.
Yeah.
And then the center that they drafted next, Bryce McConnell Barker. Uh, Crazy name, but I love the pick there too. And he was actually the one that was compared to Sorelli from what I saw. So tell me more a bit about him.
Um, just just all around, really sound centerman. Plays all three zones. Is really solid defensively. Very responsible. Played for the Sioux Greyhounds in the OHL. Played against Brennan Othman in the OHL playoffs this year. Um, and when you get to like the almost a fourth round, this kid was picked 97th overall. You're almost in like the triple digits there. um, you shouldn't be expecting from here on out every player to make the NHL, but this is a kid that's going to be exciting to watch. Of course, we have Brennan Othman and Will Cooley potentially graduating from the OHL to the pros. Othman would be with the Rangers because he's not eligible for the Hartford Wolfpack. But to have a player like this kid, McConnell Barker, in the organization, I think this upcoming season he could really have a breakout year. Um, I think he ranked 8th among draft eligible players in goals in the OHL this past season.
Yeah,
So
which is huge.
only seven draft eligible players had more goals than he did. He had 23 goals in 68 games, and 49 points in total. So yeah, they get their center in the third round. You know, they were going to draft a center sooner or later, but you always have to go with, you know, the best player you can get. You shouldn't really settle for you know, for a center. If a guy like Adam Sakura in our case is available, you go for that. But once you get to the third round, yeah, you could probably expect a center. And then the next guy, of course, Noah Laba is also a center. Fourth round pick, 111th, drafted with the selection that we got for Brett Howden.
So, I mean, he can't be much worse than Brett Howden. So, I definitely am okay with that. So,
Yeah.
6'1" for him, 181 pounds. I know that Ranger fans were freaking out about Sakura's size. So there you go. You got a guy above 6 foot there, and I'm not really sure too much about Laba, but all I know is that I'm very happy that Drury kind of went into these later rounds, decide, all right, we're going to go in there, draft some centers, and hope that we hit on one of them. So I'm
Yeah.
definitely a fan of that pick as well.
Yeah, and when you're looking at guys like Laba and Vittorio Mancini, um, you know, you're looking at players that are second, or in Mancini's case, third year eligible for the draft. So you're not talking about kids that are still 17, 18 years old. They're a little bit more advanced in their development. They're a little bit further ahead. So you could say that on the one hand, they're safer picks because they already had that development at age 18, 19, or age 20. But on the other hand, you know, there's not much room for growth as if you would draft a 17 or 18-year-old. Um, but yeah, Noah Laba played for the Lincoln Stars in the USHL. He was initially committed to go to Colgate University in New York, but he decommitted and now he's going to Colorado College. So still a you know, decent program in the NCAA. And by going to the NCAA, you are basically guaranteeing 4 years of NHL exclusive rights. So it gives you 4 full years before you have to make a decision.
Yeah, which is huge because this is a team that I feel like needs to take advantage of being able to have guys under control for a long time, given the cap situation. And now we're seeing Patrick Nemeth might get bought out, which just absolutely pisses me off. I I'm just confused how Andrew Ladd was able to fetch, or they were able to trade Andrew Ladd the Islanders, but the Rangers couldn't move Patrick Nemeth somehow. It makes no sense to me how that didn't happen today. But same
Yeah,
with the Julian Gauthier trade. I was expecting a couple more trades today that we didn't even end up
yeah,
seeing.
but you know, you could still see trades happening maybe next week or the week after for picks in next year's draft. You know, it doesn't have to be a pick for this year's draft. You want to spread it out a little bit, so we can still see trades happening for maybe Dryden Hunt, Julian Gauthier, Patrick Nemeth. I don't think he's going to be on the team this season.
I
Um,
hope not. He's
no,
just a disaster, and
no.
I think that the Rangers need to try their best to find a trade partner because you can't do this buyout thing again. Because we're one season away now from getting free of all these buyouts, and now we're just gonna add another one on the books. It's just ridiculous to me.
Yeah, no, true. Yeah, and then looking at the next kid we drafted, Vittorio Mancini, from Saginaw, Michigan. His dad, Robert Mancini, played college hockey for Colorado College. So you could see, you know, you could see that, you know, he comes from a hockey background, even though his dad never played professional hockey. But his dad was also a scout for the Edmonton Oilers. Was their development coach. So he grew up in this hockey environment. You know, as a kid, he was around, you know, NHL organizations. I think that's always an interesting thing to look at. It's not necessarily a guarantee for something to come out of it, but yeah, Vittorio Mancini just turned 20 in May. So this was his third year eligible for the draft. They get him in the 5th round. Right-handed defenseman, 6'3", 216 pounds. Played a couple of years in Sweden, actually, including 5 professional hockey games, or semi-pro, actually, in Hockey Eton. Haven't really seen much of this kid, but goes to the University of Nebraska, Omaha. So another NCAA kid. So you get like an extra year. In this case, you'll get 3 years or maybe 2, depending on how far he is in his college. The moment he graduates, that's when his NHL rights expire. But adding a right-handed defenseman to your prospect pool makes sense, because aside from Nils Lundqvist, the only right-handed defenseman in your pool is Hunter Skinner, as far as I'm aware. So they needed to add someone there. But once you get to the 5th round, it's hard to get too upset about who they select. And then the next kid is a Russian kid, Maxim Barbashev, younger brother of Ivan Barbashev, who played for the St. Louis Blues. Plays in the QMJHL for the Moncton Wildcats. So I was actually quite excited about this pick, because I finally have a reason to watch the QMJHL again. I haven't followed the QMJHL in a few years now, at least not to the point where I actually had a vested interest in it, because there was a Rangers prospect in it. But yeah, QMJHL prospects for the Rangers haven't really worked out too well. I don't consider Lafreniere really a QMJHL prospect, because he didn't play there after we drafted him. But you have to go back to like Anthony Duclair to find someone who actually was a successful pick. So yeah, interesting what's going to happen with this guy. 42 points in 59 games. Turned 18 in December, so he's among the oldest players in his draft class. But yeah, left-handed winger, 6'1", 183 pounds. Late 5th round pick. Not really much to get upset about, to be honest. And then the last pick is an interesting one, because this kid's dad played for the Rangers. Zachary Karpa, his dad, Dave Karpa, was a Ranger in, when was it? Like the early 2000s, 2001, 2002. And Karpa goes to Harvard, same college as Adam Fox, same college as Jimmy Vesey. So again, you have an NCAA kid. He's already 20 years old, so there's that. But left-handed center, 6'2", 190 pounds. And again, that history growing up in a hockey environment, because his dad was a professional hockey player. Interesting to see him be the final pick of the day for the Rangers.
Yeah, and I think overall that Drury did a great job, and just given the fact that you trade Georgiev and you get a couple guys, I mean, if any of these guys just pan out to any degree for Georgiev, I'll absolutely take that, because Georgiev obviously had no role on this team, being the backup, and then Igor is obviously going to take up most of the time, and I expect them to sign a veteran backup. I hope, because there's no way a guy like Tyler Wall or anyone like that is ready, right?
No, I think they have to go for a backup goalie in free agency, or maybe they draft one. Who knows? But yeah, I don't see a guy like Tyler Wall or Adam Huska or even Dylan Garant be the backup for the Rangers. They have to go after a guy that has that NHL experience. You don't want to rely on a guy that hasn't even played in the NHL yet. So Wall and Garand are not an option, in my opinion.
Yeah, I completely agree. And also, I feel like you got to go that safe route with a veteran, just given the fact that Igor has had a couple injuries every season so far in his career. So you got to play it safe there.
Yeah, and there are goalies like Yaroslav Halak, 37 years old, has been all over the league, played for the Bruins, played for the Islanders, played for the Capitals. I'm not saying that he's the guy they should definitely go for, but that's the type of goalie that you would want Drury to target in the coming weeks.
Yeah, I completely agree. I was looking in like the Halak range, the Comries of the world, guys like that. I mean, David Riddick doesn't excite me, but someone like that would still be pretty decent. And it's going to be weird with the goalie market, just given how much goalie movement there's been over the past few days. Darcy Kemper out of town, and Colorado now, and then you had Huso traded today, and I just wonder what's going to happen there. And I'm just hoping it's not Kincaid. I don't think it's going to be, but if Kincaid's the backup, we're going to have problems here.
Yeah, I don't think Kincaid is the guy that you want as your backup for a full season. But kudos to Drury for getting not just the picks we use today, but also a third-round pick next year.
Yeah, which that was huge to me, given the fact that next year's draft is way deeper than this one. So the fact that you add a draft pick to next year is huge to me.
Yeah, true. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Free agency starts in 5 days. I think prospect camp starts in 2 days. So all the players that were drafted today will be packing their bags and flying to Westchester. It's gonna be a fun couple of weeks for Ranger fans. If you're really into the whole prospect aspect of the NHL, the next couple of days are gonna be fun.
Yeah, and then in August even you got the World Juniors again, so you got a couple things to look forward to here this summer when it comes to Ranger prospects here. Anyone in chat that has questions, we'll get to that. Let's see, Mike. So we got number 2 on Stepway Stevens draft wish list. Was that in order of wants?
I wouldn't say that it was definitely in a specific order. But I'd say Sakura was in my top 3 on that list. Jagger Firkus was my number 1. And I'm not the type of person that has like draft rankings. I don't rank prospects. I don't go out and say, no, I had this guy, expected to go in the 4th round or in the 5th. I'm not that type of person. I just watch prospects. Like I watch games of Ryder Korzak, and then Jagger Firkus plays on that same team, so I notice him a little bit more than I would notice other players, and that's why sometimes I gravitate a little bit towards a certain player. Sakura, I've actually seen in person in Slovakia over the last year or two. I've seen him a couple of times, so he was someone I gravitated towards as well. But look, I'm just happy that the Rangers got a guy that has like really high upside. And when you get to this stage of your rebuild where you start to be in contender, you still need to hit on those draft picks. You cannot keep trading them away every year. You cannot keep failing to hit on them because you need to restock the shelves of your prospect pool. If you call up players like Will Cooley, Brennan Othman, Brett Berard maybe in a year, it's great to have those players come through the system, but you need to replenish that. You need to replace those players in your prospect pool. That prospect pool needs to be filled with prospects that in 4, 5, 6, 7 years can make that same kind of impact. And I think Adam Sakura is a great addition to this prospect pool.
Yeah, completely agree there. You look at Tampa Bay, who's been competing since 2015. You had Cirelli come through the system, Sergachev, guys like that. You always got to restock.
Killorn, Palat. They had undrafted free agents like Yanni Gourde. They drafted a guy like Ross Colton, who's not really a flashy guy per se, but still a contributor now on their team that went to the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, which is huge. And he did score that winning goal. Rob, what is up? How are you doing today? I'm amazed we didn't do more on the trade front, though. I wasn't really expecting much on the trade front. I mean, the Rangers didn't have a first-round pick, so it's not like they had ammo to go out there and pull the trigger on a guy like DeBrincat who got moved, or go out there and get a Pierre-Luc Dubois. Either way, that was going to require a draft pick for next year, so I didn't expect much. But I will say I definitely expected Gauthier to get moved for a draft pick today. I expected maybe a guy like Hayek or Hunt to go, but like Steven said earlier in the stream, those guys could get moved still easily for a pick next year. And I expect Gauthier to be moved considering he wanted out.
And I think getting 3 draft picks for Alexander Georgiev took a lot of the pressure off of Chris Drury. If that trade doesn't happen, then there might be a little bit more urgency to trade a guy like Hayek, to trade a guy like Gauthier. But by already getting 3 picks, quantity over quality, for a backup goalie you weren't going to keep anyway, it took a little bit of the pressure off. And the 3rd and 5th round pick fit perfectly into our draft capital for today, because those were the picks that, well, we traded away a third round pick for, was it Tyler Mott?
The third rounder was for, I think that was for Reeves, because I think we traded a fourth.
Yeah, sorry, yeah. The third rounder went to Vegas for Ryan Reeves. Our fourth rounder went to Florida for Vetrano, but we got Winnipeg's fourth rounder from Vegas for Brett Howden. So we had 2 picks in the 5th round, none in the 7th, and the other rounds on day 2 we had a pick each. So you still come out of day 2 with 6 prospects out of 6 rounds. That's good for a team that made significant moves at the deadline, trading away picks. To still come out of day 2 of the draft with the same amount of prospects as you have rounds to go through, I like it.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Devils and Rangers took Czech teammates Adam Sakura and Nemec.
Oh, okay. So quick correction, they're from Slovakia, so they're not Czech.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think they're Czech.
No, it's okay. I mean, 30 years ago they were still one country, so it's an interesting history, Central Europe. But no, they played for Nitra in the Slovak league. Yeah, they're teammates. It's interesting to see that dynamic. And when Shane Wright wasn't picked first overall, my initial thought was the Devils are going to pick Shane Wright, and you're going to have Shane Wright and Brennan Othman, Devils Rangers rivalry with those two as best friends in the middle. That's some interesting storylines. But we get Nemec and Sakura. I'll take that too.
Yeah, I'll definitely take that. And I was worried about Shane Wright going to New Jersey. The last thing they need is another center to kill us.
Yeah.
New York style. What is up? I want Sakura as a Devils fan. That was a good pick by the Rangers. Yep. So other people agreeing there. What are your thoughts on Othman's chances overall to be a Ranger? If you mean this upcoming season, I'm not so sure, but he'll definitely obviously make the team the year after. But in terms of this season, I'm not sure. It's really going to depend how he looks in camp.
It also depends on what the Rangers think his development is going to be in the Ontario Hockey League. With the way he's played last season, how much can he still learn going back to the Flint Firebirds? How much can he still develop going back at age 19, age 20 to play against junior kids? A couple of years ago, the Edmonton Oilers, of course, drafted Leon Draisaitl 3rd overall. They had him on the team for 39 games, 2 games as a healthy scratch, 37 games played. And then they sent him down to the WHL. I could see a similar scenario with Brennan Othman, where he's on the team for 39 games, then they send him back at game 40, because game 40 is a more important threshold than the 10 games for the entry-level contract. So to quickly go over this, I don't want to make it too complicated, but if a player age 18 or 19 plays 10 games, his entry-level contract no longer slides. Everyone knows that. But there's a second rule that if a player age 18 or 19 is on the team for 40 games or more, either as a healthy scratch or playing, that season counts as a pro season. And if Othman's on the team for 40 games or more, he would be an undrafted or eligible for undrafted free agency at age 26 instead of age 27. So if you do see Brennan Othman on the team past the 10 games, don't expect him to be on the team after game 40 of the season. Something to keep in mind.
Yep, that's something to keep an eye on there. And I'm excited for Othman, but if he's not on the team for the full season this year, it will most certainly be next year. Drury did an amazing job in the Georgiev trade.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, to get the same quantity of picks as the Hawks did for Alex DeBrincat is still just wild to me. Obviously, completely different in terms of, the rounds and everything, but it's still mind-blowing to me. How were the picks in rounds 4 to 6? The picks around 4 to 6 were pretty solid, but at the end of the day, it's magic beans. You just hope that these guys end up panning out.
True. Look, once you get to rounds 4, 5, 6, 7, you're not really talking about players in a sense of, oh, this kid's going to make it. Oh, this kid's going to be a star. You are looking for upside. You are looking for players that have that one quality that makes them stand out, that makes them separate themselves from the group. And sometimes it works. You know, when we drafted Carl Hagelin in, was it, I think 2007, um, Carl Hagelin had one part of his game that he was elite at, and that was skating. He was one of the fastest skaters in his draft class. And if you can be elite at one thing and good at everything else, you can carve out a pretty decent career for yourself in the NHL if everything works out. Um, but the reason I mentioned Carl Hagelin is also because Carl Hagelin was drafted when he was 20 years old. So if people are looking at these draft picks and go, oh, this kid's already 20 years old, why are we doing this? Well, it's not always a bad thing. The Tampa Bay Lightning in the 4th round today drafted Lucas Edmonds, who's 20 years old too.
Yeah,
Sometimes,
that's a
sometimes
sign.
players at age 20 are just better picks than they were at age 18. Victor Arvidsson was drafted at age 20, by the way.
That's another name, and the list goes on and on. And yeah, you just have to hope that they could develop the rest of their game, stick
Yep.
obviously their lead at their strengths, and then you gotta
Mhm.
just help them work around with the other parts. After the first 3 rounds, it's almost a crapshoot to pick players. Yeah, exactly.
It,
You just hope.
yeah, pretty much. You're just talking about personal preference. You're talking about feelings. You know, you're sitting at the draft table when you get to the 4th round, and you're having a conversation with, between the scouts, and it's like, well, I really like this guy, and it's almost like a sales pitch. Every scout is trying to convince Chris Drury that their guy is going to be the best of the bunch that's left. But once you get to the 4th round, it's all about how do you feel about this guy. It's not, well, we all feel this guy's going to be great, like they probably thought with Adam Sakura. 2nd round, you still have a pretty good shot at drafting an NHL player. And I think we should also remember that these kids are, in general, 17, 18 years old. It's not like the NFL where you draft players at age 21, 22, 23. After they've gone through 4 years of college, they are much more ready. They're much more easy. They're much easier to evaluate. And that's why in the NFL, for instance, a 4th round pick is worth a lot more than a 4th round pick in the NHL.
Yeah, that's a very great point there. And same thing with even the MLB. Some of the guys come out of college and you could evaluate them better.
Yeah.
Do you both feel we bring Mott back, feel like he completely changed the defensive style of hockey we
Mhm.
played? For me personally, I would love Tyler Mott back, and I think it's a mistake if they let him go. It just really all depends on the price because obviously it is looking like the number 2 center spot is the main priority for the Rangers. And if Tyler Mott's asking for north of 2.5 million, then maybe Drury and company have to shy away from that, just given the fact that they're not going to be able to get a number 2 center at that point.
Yeah, no, and Tyler Mott is a guy that I hadn't really seen much of. Of course, I've seen him play for like the Blackhawks and the Blue Jackets, and he was actually part of the Artemi Panarin trade between the Blue Jackets and the Blackhawks years ago. He was an additional piece in that trade. But Tyler Mott, what surprised me about him is just the way he plays on a penalty kill. He he makes the penalty kill unpredictable for the opponent. He's the type of player that doesn't just dump the puck automatically. He assesses situation and he plays a possession game on the penalty kill, and that's so refreshing. And I would love to keep that on the team. I'd love to keep him on the team to revitalize not just the 4th line but also the penalty kill. And there's the history with Panarin because they played together. They were together at the Blackhawks, at the Blue Jackets. He has a history with Jacob Trouba. They both went to Michigan. Tyler Mott for me is a bigger priority to sign to an extension than Andrew Copp or Frank Vetrano.
Yeah, completely agree with that personally. And I know a lot of Ranger fans want Vetrano back, but to me personally, It doesn't make sense when you already have Panarin and Kreider locked up long term. You have Lafreniere who needs to get top 6 minutes. Kakko needs to. Kravtsov's coming over. Othman's coming through the system.
If I have to summarize it in one sentence, it's that it's a lot easier for the Rangers to replace Vetrano than it is to replace Mott.
Yeah, 100% agree with that. And thoughts on Kopp and Strome? Strome could kick rocks for me. I feel strong about that. And for Andrew Kopp, I don't think that at this point it makes sense anymore to bring him back, just given the fact he didn't play center for us. So we don't know what we're getting from him at the center spot. And with the money that he's asking for, I'd rather just give that to someone that has been there, done that as a number 2 center. Because Kopp, for me, I feel is nothing more than a third line center.
Yeah, look, I like Andrew Kopp, and if they bring him back at a decent cap hit, I think he can be useful. But you have to be careful that he's not blocking your young kids and their development. If he plays on the wing, he's taking away minutes from either Kakko or Kravtsov. If he plays center, or you either play him on the third line or he's on the second line, and you're pushing Hedel down. So you have to, at this point, you're going to have to start playing the kids. And I said this on Twitter before. If you're not going to play them now, then when are you going to do it? Hedel is turning 23. Kakko is turning 22 during the next season. Lafreniere is turning 21 in October. If this is not the time to trust them with bigger minutes, how long are you going to keep this up? Lafreniere is a first overall pick, and he's almost turning 21. It's time to unleash them. It's time to just let them go out there and play.
Yeah, and you need them to thrive because obviously the team went around and rebuilded for them. So I just don't understand why they're delaying it. It's never made sense to me playing, and it just bothers me so much that it's for guys like Dryden Hunt, Colin Blackwell, guys like that. Like, at least let it be for someone that's a legit top 6 winger. Is the Kravtsov stuff resolved, or is he a goner? Nope, everything seems to be resolved on that front. So Kravtsov should be here unless the Rangers use him as a piece to get a second line center.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
Thank you both. And Stat Boy Steven let Wardy know he does an amazing job as well. I come here and Rangers review for my Rangers news. You all do a great job and keep everyone informed. Thank you for the support there. And yes, everybody check out Rangers reviews. Stat Boy Steven and Wardy, they do their weekly show there. So go check that out as well. And then you say, I think Kravtsov is going to get a shot. My thoughts are, since Anderson was a goner, they don't want to have another disgruntled first rounder here. Yeah, completely agree there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a good point. And yeah, you don't want to be in a situation where another top 10 pick is going to be traded for peanuts. You know, you need to get something out of this guy. You need to, because if you don't get the most out of this guy, then it's going to look really bad on the organization. And you know, don't underestimate how much of an impact this has. You know, family members of Ranger prospects are talking about this. Agents are talking about this. In junior hockey, people are noticing this too. They're noticing that Sean Day asked to have his contract terminated. They're noticing that Elias Anderson was going back to Sweden because he was unhappy. Kravtsov went back to Russia because he was unhappy. They're noticing Kakko and Lafreniere not developing the way people expected them to develop. Now, each of these things on their own is not much of a concern, but when you add them up, it's becoming a bit of a red flag, and people around the hockey world are noticing. So the Rangers need to get this one right. The Rangers need to do the right thing with Kravtsov.
Yeah, I completely agree there. And it's not like it's a scenario like Tampa Bay had where they draft Drouin 3rd overall and then flip him for a guy like Sergachev. You're looking at a guy like Anderson who was flipped for a second rounder, which, yes, became Will Coley, but I don't know if at the time, obviously at the time they got the second rounder, they did not know that. Mott has speed. Yeah, Tyler Mott's speed is a huge part of his game there. Please keep Kakko. I'm on the side where I am content with moving Kako if it is for the right piece that is going to be here long term. Because when I'm seeing Ranger fans willing to throw Kako around for guys like Patrick Kane or guys like Mark Scheifele, guys like that, it doesn't excite me, and I don't think that that would be the right decision there. I think that if you're moving Kako, it has to be for a Pierre Dubois who's still young, has control. You could lock him up long term, or someone like that.
Yeah. Yeah, true. Look, I don't mind if they trade any player. Any player is available in a trade for the right price, for the right return. I can live with anyone getting traded. When I see people talk about trading for JT Miller, who has 1 year left on his deal and the Rangers can simply not afford an extension for him. That's not the type of player you give up first round picks and top prospects for. And if other teams want to overpay, let them overpay. Really, just let them overpay. I don't care. I just don't want to be that team that overpays because we are still building towards becoming a contender. Yeah, we made it to the conference finals this year. We're not there yet. We're still building towards becoming that powerhouse in the East, that team that is on par. Like the team that I want to see the Rangers build is what the Bruins had in the 2010s, where you are a contender every year. You make it to multiple cup finals. And then once you get to the cup final, you hope to win one, maybe two, hopefully three. But I rather have the Boston Bruins, decade than and this is gonna sound weird, than having the Kings decade where you are competitive for 4 years, you win two cups, and then you suck again. I'd rather be a contender for a decade and a half and let the chips fall into place.
Yeah, I completely agree because then you're setting yourself up for potentially more success than a team like LA had.
Yep.
Tyler Mott needs to be re-signed by the Rangers, and shocking how good Frank Vatrano played with Kreider and Mika, and they have not signed either one of those guys yet. Very disappointing for me. When it comes to Vatrano, I really don't think that he's going to re-sign. Like we mentioned earlier, just you're loaded at the wing. I just don't see where Vatrano fits in. And in terms of Tyler Mott, yeah, he does need to be re-signed, but you still have about a week to get things done there. So I still expect that to get done.
Yeah. True.
No more than 5 million for Cop. Agree there, but even then, I wouldn't even give I don't know if I'd even give 4.5 for Andrew Cop to be a guy that is maybe playing center. Because to me, you're so tight on cap. You have Keandre Miller off the books next year. You have Alexi Lafreniere off the books next year. You have so much that you gotta do, and I don't know if it makes sense to give Cop all that money.
Yeah. No. True. It's an important 2-3 years that are coming up for the Rangers.
Yeah, with the cap and how tight it is there. Kravtsov for Calder. We could hope. We could hope. Cop has a concussion issue also. I was not aware of that. That's news to me.
Yeah. So does Zibanejad and so does Crosby. I mean, concussion issues, unfortunately, are a risk in the NHL. That's just the nature of the game.
Yeah, and I don't think that's what's going to be the reason the Rangers shy away from Cop. In
No.
my opinion, all of that Kravtsov stuff that came out was probably way overblown. I'm not so
Mhm.
sure about that to a degree. I think
Yeah.
that I think that Kravtsov was genuinely upset with the team. I think that he was. I don't think it was overblown at all.
Well, I don't want to get too much into this, but if you look at it from Kravtsov's point of view, right? Um, he plays 20 games with the Rangers the season before. Then in the offseason, Pavel Buchnevich, who plays his position, is traded away. Then you're being told by Chris Drury to skip prospect camp, and this is an important one here. They told him to skip prospect camp and report to the first team right away. So he was reporting to the group that had Kreider, Panarin, Zibanejad, Fox. he wasn't going to prospect camp. And this is where his situation is different from guys like Braden Schneider, Zach Jones, Nils Lundqvist. Because people say, oh, those kids went to Hartford and they didn't complain. Well, some of them still complained, but that's a discussion for a different time. But Kravtsov's situation was different. He was told to skip prospect camp. You were setting certain expectations. Whether that's fair or not, we can discuss. But when you say certain things to a 20, 21-year-old player, you're going to give him certain expectations. And if those expectations then aren't met, and you have the option to go back to your home country where you earn 3-4 times as much as you would in Hartford, yeah, I kind of understand his decision to go back to Russia.
Yeah, I can't blame him at all. And then you have the people that were trying to say, well, Kravtsov was going to get called up after the opening night. They just wanted to play their big guys for that opening night. No, they were scared to lose Libor Hayek off of waivers for whatever reason. Yeah. If that was the case, Kravtsov would have stayed on the opening night roster, and they would have told him, hey, this is what we're doing for the first game. We'll get you in the lineup for the second game.
I don't remember the last time the Rangers went into opening night with 8 defensemen on the team. Because their healthy scratches were Libor Hayek and Jared Tenorti on defense.
Nils Lundqvist was for the first game because they had Tenorti play against Washington.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, Tenorti played the season opener. Yeah. But in general, Tenorti was the other healthy scratch among defensemen. Yeah. Having 2 scratches, 2 defensemen being a healthy scratch, that doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, and especially the fear of losing Hayek off of waivers. Just, and then Tenorti and Hayek, I'm pretty sure, ended up playing in Hartford at some point during the year anyway. So yeah. I personally like to see the kid line promoted into the top 6, but do you think Chytil could take over the 2 seed? That is where my concern is personally, that I'm not so sure if Chytil is going to be ready to take over that second line role. That's the only concern that I have with that. I do think that Lafreniere and Kakko should be in the top 6 though, but I don't know. And also, I just don't see a world where Gallant is going to play Panarin and Zibanejad. I think he likes playing Kreider on the left there with Mika in the middle, and he doesn't want to play anyone on their off wing. So I don't know if I see a scenario where that happens, but it could. It could.
Yeah.
Laffy got 19 goals with no power play time. Yeah, and I'm sure he won't get power play time again this year. Thoughts on JT Miller? I think he's going to be too expensive, and my feeling is we could do better. I am with you, Steven. I hate bringing back players for the second time. It's not even just getting back with your ex thing for me. It's the fact that you can't afford an extension. The guy had one 99-point season. Other than that, he's been pretty much a 60, 70-point guy. So is he going to replicate that season? I just
the other question
is absurd.
The other question, and you know, I brought this up during the Rangers review recording I did with Tyler, I think yesterday. Aside from Peter Nedved, can anyone name a player that was better as a Ranger in his second stint than he was in his first?
Dominic Moore. That's about it.
We're talking about a 4th line center.
Yeah, that's about it.
So, yeah, I'm not saying never trade for JT Miller, but if the price is a 1st-round pick and Zach Jones, or a 1st-round pick and Nils Lundqvist, or a 1st-round pick and Matt Robertson, maybe not a first and Matt Robertson. I do a 2nd-round pick and Matt Robertson.
Yeah, and it's just absurd to me, Vancouver's price. Mm-hmm. Like, you're seeing Schneider thrown around plus Kakko. No.
Yeah. Nope. Look, and if that's not enough, then fine. We'll move on.
Exactly. There's a free agent market that has guys that could be here for a couple extra years. I'd rather be paying and making Vinny Trocheck the second line center versus going out there giving up an absurd amount of assets for JT Miller.
Yep.
Completely agree with that, Will, that Lafreniere needs to play consistent power play 1 minutes next year. Especially if Strome is gone, I feel like there's no excuse and there's no better time to put Laffy on power play 1 the next year. And I would rather try to keep the first rounder for next year.
Also a good point. Yep.
Considering you can't trade all your first rounders. You're looking at the Islanders right now who traded all their first round picks to try to win a cup, and they didn't win a cup, and now they're dry on picks, and they still traded their first round pick last night. It was about money for him. If you're talking about Kravtsov, that is far from the case.
Well, was it all about money? Maybe not. Was it about money? Yeah, of course. If you were given the option to go to this location to play hockey for $70,000 a year, or go back home and earn $250,000 a year, we're talking about guys that have to make a lifetime's worth of salary in a decade. And you can say, yeah, but Zach Jones never had an offer from the KHL to earn $250K. Same with Braden Schneider, same with Nils Lundqvist. Although Nils Lundqvist technically had offers from the KHL when he was still playing in Sweden. But it's completely different for a guy like Kravtsov. And that's just the world we live in. That's the situation you're in when you draft guys from a league that pays more competitive salaries than your minor league. And it's very easy to fix, actually. Just raise the AHL salary on entry-level contracts. Simple.
Yeah, but this is the same league that can't raise their salary cap and get things together there. But yeah, I wouldn't say it was all about the money, because I think that things still could have went differently had.
No, it wasn't all about the money, but the money was definitely the deciding factor in the end.
True, but part of me also feels that if Kravtsov was told to show at the prospect camp and then was told he was going to start the season in Hartford, maybe things could have gone a bit differently on that front.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, that's a really good point. If he would have been told, you go to prospect camp just like everyone else, you are managing his expectations in a different way. True.
Thoughts on Adam Sakura? Both Steven and I are very excited about the pick. We think the upside's there. Being the youngest player in the draft, still having room to grow both physically and in terms of his game overall. So we're both very excited about the pick there. For me, I'd rather have PLD. Cop to me just seems like Strome all over again. No better than anyone, including myself, could play with Panarin, pick up 50 points.
I'm going to go out on a limb here, but if I have to compare Adam Sakura to players that were on the Rangers this past season, there's not one player that makes sense. However, he has the physicality of Sammy Blais with the technique and the speed of Frank Vatrano.
I was thinking of him as more of a Tyler Mott type in a way.
Yeah, he's more snarky than Tyler Mott.
Yeah, I think that's what separates him from Tyler Mott. But in terms of this, I'd rather Pierre-Luc Dubois also over Andrew Copp. Completely agree there. It's just a matter of what you have to give up to get Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Well, yeah, we're not talking about a free agent here with Pierre-Luc Dubois.
Of course, he would go back. I just don't believe all of the stuff about Drury talk crapping to him in front of everyone. I think that was what was being said. I'm not too sure on that front if there's any truth to that, just given the fact that obviously I'm not there. That's all behind closed doors and everything, so I'm not too sure on that front.
No, but look, a story like that doesn't come out of thin air either.
Very true.
There's a pretty good chance that it's not as bad as it was made out to be in the reports, but something happened. This story originated somewhere. This is not something that someone just sits in an office and goes, "I'm going to make this up today." That doesn't happen. Something happened between Drury and Kravtsov when he used his European assignment clause to go back to Russia the first time. Something happened. Calling him a quitter in front of his teammates, it's possible. I wouldn't rule it out. But yeah, we'll never know. It's a story that's based on reports from people in the organization, and the question is, how reliable do you think those sources are? And in my experience, in life at least, the truth is somewhere in the middle. I'm sure that there was an altercation between Drury and Kravtsov. I'm sure Drury said something that Kravtsov didn't like. But to what extent, we'll probably never know.
Yeah, completely agree there.
And just to wrap this up, the Kravtsov thing, I'm not making excuses for Kravtsov going back to Russia. The decision by Kravtsov to go back to Russia was a bad one, and I criticized him for it. But it's not a situation where 100% of the blame falls on either Drury or Kravtsov either.
Yeah, and that's exactly how I feel. I feel that it's mutual, that both of them made the wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And what's happening with Zach Jones and Niels, I want to see them grow here, but I have a weird feeling we're going to trade one or both. Well, when it comes to that, I think that one of them will get a full-time role next year, barring them go out and get a different veteran defenseman or keeping Patrick Nemeth. But I think that one of them will get moved while the other one stays, but it's just a question of which, or maybe both, just they try both, see what either one could do, see which one works out, and then maybe we see one go at the deadline. I'm not too sure what happens there, but I think that they need to play. It just sucks that we're paying $8 million for someone that's not even our third best defenseman to clog up a spot from those guys.
Yeah.
AK, welcome. How are you doing? We need PLD, excellent consistent player despite somewhat trouble at times. Cop to me is no different than like a one-season wonder. Anybody could play at Panarin and put up 50 points, including myself. That was something that's something that I've been questioning personally, is how much of Cop's production when he was here was Panarin and how much of it was him. We don't know, but if Cop comes back, we will see. Just say no to JT. We gave him for too cheap, and to get him back will cost us the future. Yeah, and that's another thing that just aggravates me. It just, we go through a whole rebuild, and that was the big trade to start the rebuild, and now we want to bring him back. It's just ridiculous.
Yeah.
JT would be nothing more than a rental anyways. Yep. We aren't in a position to go for rentals anymore, hold on the picks, and only invest in long-term solutions for center. I don't know if I agree there. If at the deadline this team needs to fill some holes and that requires trading a couple picks and they feel that it will put them over the edge to potentially win a cup, you go out there and do it. But you don't go for a rental like JT Miller, who's going to cost you the farm and more. I just hope Kravtsov comes to camp ready and not entitled. I think that both him and Drury have moved on from the situation. I think that everything should go well. That's at least what I hope. Do you think Othman got a chance to make the big club this year? We talked about this earlier that, yeah, we do think that Othman could make it. It's just the 40-game threshold could be up in the air. It just depends how well he does. If Othman does go back to the OHL, I would like to see him play center. He has nothing else to prove. I don't know if they're going to try him at center or not, but that will be the Rangers' decision there. Yeah, Othman had a real strong season there in the OHL. So, and it's also Drury's first draft pick. So I feel that that's part of why I think Othman also makes the roster is that Drury's going to want to play his first draft pick as soon as he could. I think our first rounder should be in play the next couple of years, and we should be going for it all. Of our top players are in their prime. I agree to a certain extent. It depends on the move because, like Steven said earlier, you want to try to contend for decades and not just for a couple years like the LA Kings did, where they got 2 cups in 4 years, yes, but you look at the Bruins who are contending for a decade and a half. You have way more potential to win more cups there. But I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We got less than a week until free agency, so Drury's going to have to – we'll see what contracts get done. Monday's coming up, so I'm sure that we'll get a Rangers Monday this week. So we will see what happens there. And we're pretty much hitting the hour mark, so that is where we're probably going to wrap things up here. Steven, thank you so much for joining in, answering questions, and filling us in on the draft picks for today. And for all the listeners, thank you so much for tuning in and watching. Appreciate all of you guys with all your questions and everything. So, yeah, that's going to do it for us. Thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a like if you did not already. Subscribe if you guys are new. Turn the notifications on. And we will see you guys next time. Let's go, Rangers.
Let's go, Rangers.